Self-isolation is a necessary measure to stop the spread of COVID-19, but it keeps many people in difficult family situations. Indeed, domestic violence is reportedly on the rise, and many women are victims of it. The social distancing measures, which was intended to help the population, creates new problems. Access to justice is a fundamental value of the Canadian justice system. To achieve this, transparency and accountability should be at the forefront in pursuing this goal. During unprecedented times, have we adapted to our situation? Are we ensuring that victims of domestic violence have the access that they need and deserve? To gain a better understanding of the situation, we've decided to reach out to a Montreal-based family lawyer to discuss the challenges faced during COVID-19.
When COVID-19 started and we were affected here in Montreal, there was a lot of uncertainty. We had proceedings that we had commenced for clients that were pending, that were just about to be served, that we put a direct halt on because we now were learning that this spouse was going to be really stuck in the house with the other partner, especially if it was a case where there was domestic violence or any sort of abuse at all in the home. We had decided to hold off on issuing or filing the proceedings in those cases, and then it was really difficult because then people had to start coexisting. At one point, our courts were really closed in the sense that they were only available for emergencies. So to issue a divorce or to issue a proceeding, whether it be about other things, it really had to be very urgent. We had some cases for child support or spousal support that were urgent. Custody stuff was urgent, but it was very hard. There was a very big triage of scrutiny to be able to get into court. And when you're already dealing with a tenuous house, a house where there's always already a lot of stress, it was already not good, there was already psychological ill treatment involved, and then it's heightened, everything's heightened. You just have more hours in the day for that to happen. I would say it's from March until I want to almost say July. It was very hard. People were calling, trying to find out their rights. There was clients that were calling me. They were trying to see at the time if they could even rent an apartment, because when we were really on that lockdown, my clients couldn't even go and find an apartment. We were trying to get one party to move out of the house because it's intolerable, but where are they going? So I'm go stay at a hotel. Well, I don't think domestic violence has ever been dealt with properly. I mean, it's an epidemic in and of itself, It's been going on for years, not being talked about. And then you still have people who talk about it in almost like a joking way. This is real. It's 1 in 4 women. I think it might have been, at one point I heard a stat of 1 in 3. That's mind-boggling. And the resources, we don't have enough resources. There needs to be services that are more readily available. So to get a social worker in Quebec, the wait list is incredibly long if you want to go through the public system. So basically, if you can't afford to go through private, to get treatment is very, very hard, and a long wait list. And sometimes people don't have that kind of time.
With court restrictions high and resources being stretched thin, we wanted to learn more. How have domestic violence services in Quebec managed the difficulties that arose due to COVID-19? Furthermore, how are social services participating in our judicial system? Madame Louise Lafortune is responsible for files related to the issue of domestic violence and intervention at l'Institution de regroupement des maisons pour femmes victimes de violences conjugales. She provided us with valuable insight into both of these questions.
On a été très inquiète des impacts de la pandémie et notamment du confinement sur les femmes victimes de violences conjugales et les enfants, parce que c'est ça, quand le conjoint est tout le temps là, c'est d'autant plus dangereux pour les femmes. Il y a d'autant plus de gestes de violence qui sont posés. Ce qu'on a vu aussi, nous, dans l'occupation des maisons, on était à contre-courant de la vague, c'est-à-dire que quand la vague était haute, que le confinement était grand, il y avait moins d'occupation dans les maisons parce que les femmes étaient plus prises et elles pouvaient moins échapper à la violence. Parce que c'est souvent quand le conjoint n'est pas là qu'elles vont appeler à l'aide. Quand le conjoint est présent, elles sont prises. Quand il y a eu des confinements, donc au mois de juin, puis pendant l'été, là, il y a eu un gros boom d'appels à l'aide dans les maisons. Il y a des enjeux de formation importants des différents intervenants, que ce soit policiers, procureurs, juges, à la problématique de la violence conjugale, puis bien comprendre ce que veut dire pour une victime être dans un processus de violence conjugale, puis les stratégies aussi du conjoint par rapport à ça. On est à réfléchir aussi à la possibilité d'avoir des tribunaux spécialisés. Donc, là aussi, qui fait en sorte que l'accompagnement de la victime est pris en compte et ça ne devient pas un lieu de revictimisation, parce que c'est ça aussi l'enjeu, c'est ça que les femmes trouvent difficile, c'est quand elles sentent que, dans le fond, elles ne sont pas crues, qu'on ne tient pas compte de la dangerosité du conjoint. Dans un système qui est encore basé beaucoup sur les gestes d'agression. Ça ne tient pas compte de l'ensemble de la problématique, puis de notamment toute la violence psychologique dont les femmes sont victimes. Fait que ça aussi, je pense qu'il y a des avancées à faire à cet égard-là si on veut aider l'ensemble des femmes victimes de violences conjugales et pas seulement les cas qui sont criminalisables parce que notre loi est faite de façon à ce qu'on ne tient compte que des gestes.
Domestic violence is still very present in our society today, with the pandemic shining a spotlight on a pre-existing issue. Despite the perseverance of social workers and associated individuals involved in solving this problem, we still have a long way to go. We must ensure the protection of victims by fighting to break down taboos, encourage denunciation, and facilitate access to justice and support services. In order to do so, we all have a contribution to make, and it's our duty to be on the lookout, to raise awareness, and to build the resources available to create a better future in our society.